Dear Thai, dear Sangha, my name is Brother Contemplation, and I'm happy to be here with all of you today. To start us off, I'm going to read the introduction, the formal introduction to the 5 mindfulness trainings. The 5 mindfulness trainings represent the Buddhist vision for a global spirituality and ethic. They are a concrete expression of the Buddha's teachings on the 4 Noble Truths and the Noble Eightfold Path, the path of right understanding and true love, leading to healing, transformation, and happiness for ourselves and for the world. To practice the 5 mindfulness trainings is to cultivate the insight of interbeing, or right view, which can remove all discrimination, intolerance, anger, fear, and despair. If we live according to the 5 mindfulness trainings, we are already on the path of a bodhisattva. Knowing we are on that path, we are not lost in confusion about our life in the present or in fears about the future. So today we will be discussing in groups the 5 mindfulness trainings. If you've ever been to a panel discussion, 5 mindfulness training panel before, you know that usually we have 6 people up here, a facilitator, that's who I am today, and then 5 people presenting on one training each. And the reason you don't see those mats up here today is because you are the panel. So today we will get into our Dharma discussion groups, and we will discuss one training. And we'll do that, we'll discuss it for about 30 minutes, and you'll come up with a 7-minute presentation. And you can be creative, you can do anything you would like. The most important thing is that you utilize this time to discuss the training with your group and try to go a little bit deeper into the training. So ask questions, try to use the same techniques we use in Dharma sharing to keep harmony. So if you can bow in and bow out, just to keep harmony. We don't want it to turn into a philosophical debate. And the point of this is to go deep into the trainings and to really try to understand them. And for all practitioners, new and old, that's our duty. We constantly grow in our practice, and our understanding and practice of the mindfulness trainings changes constantly. So this is an opportunity to get to know the trainings if you're new to them, and also to refresh the trainings if you're an experienced practitioner already. Refresh your understanding, refresh your practice. So I've set up signs with each Dharma discussion group's name on them. So up here, the loving speech family will meet. Over on the 3rd beam from the front, the understanding family will meet. And then we have the compassion family meeting near the whiteboard. The deep listening family meeting at the second to last arched wooden beam at the right end of the hall. And the mindful breath family over here. And underneath the sign, you will see the training, so that you can read the formal training and then discuss it. After you've discussed the training, you can either elect one person, and this whole time you're discussing, you're also trying to simultaneously prep your presentation as a group. And you can elect one person, 2 people, a small group of people, or you can have the whole group come up. So be creative. And again, the main point of this practice is to try to understand the trainings on a deeper level. So we'll listen to one more sound of the bell, and then we can go and meet our group at the designated location. And after that, once the group has gathered, you're free to find another place that's comfortable. And you're also free to move your cushion or chair wherever you would like, so that you can sit down, because you will be sitting for about half an hour. And if all the groups feel like they're ready before the time is up, then we can end early and start the presentations. If not, I will give a 5-minute warning bell to let you know that you have 5 more minutes to finish discussing and prepping, and then we'll begin the presentation. I think this will be a great opportunity to learn more about the teachings and to get to know each other better. So we'll listen to one more sound of the bell, and then we'll all meet with our groups and enjoy this practice together. Thank you. So you can uncross your legs, and then the next sound of the small bell, we can stand up and go to our locations. Again, the loving speech families up here, the understanding families right next to Brother Now. Okay, once everyone's settled down, we'll begin. And the loving speech family, we'll go in order. So the loving speech family will start off with the first training. And you can just come to me, Brother Contemplation, and grab the mic, and then return it to me when you're finished. Each team will have 6 minutes max. At 5 minutes, there will be a wake-up sound invited. From the sounds of it, you had great discussion, so I'm excited to see the fruits.
Dear Thai, dear Sangha, my name is Denny. I'm with the thank you. We're with the first group, Reverence for Life. Aware of the suffering caused by the destruction of life, I am committed to cultivating the insight of interbeing and compassion, and learning ways to protect the lives of people, animals, plants, and minerals. I am determined not to kill, not to let others kill, and not to support any act of killing in the world, in my thinking, or in my way of life. Seeing that harmful actions arise from anger, fear, greed, and intolerance, which in turn come from dualistic and discriminative thinking, I will cultivate openness, non-discrimination, and non-attachment to views in order to transform violence, fanaticism, and dogmatism in myself and in the world. We had quite a bit of discussion in our group about the reverence for life. And the common theme was it can be quite difficult. Some of us think some of the other mindfulness trainings are a little more difficult to deal with, but this one opens up many possibilities and many opportunities for introspection and struggling with the trainings. Many people have difficulty dealing with some of the precepts here. How to have reverence for life when you're in the midst of a conflict at work, in the midst of a violent setting. Some people are comfortable with some parts of the training. Others really struggle with vegetarianism. Some people offered that perhaps you can take it one little step at a time, not completely overnight become a vegetarian. Maybe you can do it in stages. It's a continuing process. Other people spoke about even minor things like dealing with bugs in the house, being violent. You can put up with a lot of things. One of the group members talked about a small spider in the house. It became a lesson. Don't kill the spider. You don't have to kill the spider. You can take it outside. Just walk it out, take it out for a walk, and send it on its way. And we also heard about the middle ground. It's a constant process of learning non-attachment to views. And one of the reasons for the 5 mindfulness trainings is to nourish ourselves, really. Be good to ourselves. You can't practice perfectly, as we discussed in our group. Perfection is something that is very probably impossible to achieve, but it's an ongoing process. One of the brothers shared that being part of the world, but yet part of a mindfulness community is a struggle. And one of the other situations is that the mindfulness practice, you kind of have to adjust to the situation. In the context, sometimes being mindful, walking slowly, doing a certain practice that we can do easily here, you can't do outside. You can't do it in the greater world sometimes. Sometimes it's inappropriate, maybe even dangerous. You have to still be mindful of the situation that you're in, and so you kind of have to adjust your thinking to where you are. Thank you.
Okay, so we'll listen to one sound of the bell between each sharing. Now the understanding family can come up to present on the second training. And please follow Dennis's lead and read the training first and then do your presentation. And from that point on, from after you read the training, you will have 6 minutes to share, to present. Thank you.
True happiness, the second training. Aware of the suffering caused by exploitation, social injustice, stealing, and oppression, I am committed to practicing generosity in my thinking, speaking, and acting. I am determined not to steal and not to possess anything that should belong to others. And I will share my time, energy, and material resources with those who are in need. I will practice looking deeply to see that the happiness and suffering of others is not separate from my own happiness and suffering. The true happiness is not possible without understanding compassion, and that running after wealth, fame, power, and sensual pleasures can bring much suffering and despair. I'm aware that happiness depends on my mental attitude and not on external conditions, and that I can live happily in the present moment simply by remembering that I already have more than enough conditions to be happy. I'm committed to practicing right livelihood so that I can help reduce the suffering of living beings on Earth and reverse the process of global climate change. So for our presentation, each person is going to share a sentence or a phrase or question that this training touches in them.
Hi, I'm Lydia. I thoroughly enjoyed our group. And I felt such an understanding of each person that was sharing. And I just feel in my heart that this feeling of breathing, loving, and compassion, and suffering with other people has given me a lot of comfort.
Dear friends, dear Ty, I first want to say happy birthday to Ty, 88 years old today. And I want to share what speaks so loudly within my heart, and that is when I sit in an energy, in a space of love and compassion and healing, and I sit and listen deeply to my heart, and I honor what my heart shares, that is when I am truly happy.
Dear friends, I want to thank Marisol. The first night that we started, she put an idea in my head that I'm hoping will be the beginning of changing or starting a practice to take 3 breaths before I get on to the next client. And it just sounds to me like that might work. So thank you. Thank you all. This has been a wonderful experience. I've done this before, but not with other healthcare professionals.
Dear friends, even though I've been here before, it's still new to me every time I come. And I'm still not in practice, which is very concerning for me. And what kicked up in me this time in reading True Happiness, you know, for me, my own happiness still does not come first. I have to be honest. It is, my children come first. They continue to come first. That's probably why I still don't practice, because I teach at a Unitarian church rather than going to Sangha. It needs to stop. It needs to stop. And I really need to, my own, as I look at this, my own mental attitude needs to change in such that I need to start taking more from me. And I'll be a better parent if I take more from me. But I thank you for this weekend. It's always wonderful to be here and get from everyone and go home so renewed. Let's hope I'll be able to keep this within myself. And can I say happy birthday to Veronica also? Happy birthday, Veronica.
Dear Tay, dear Sangha, I like reminding myself that this practice and all these practices are just practices. And if I don't follow it correctly, then I try not to suffer, that I'm not perfect. In order for me to be happy constantly, I try to remember that I have more than enough, that breathing is enough. The reason why air is more than enough, because without it, I would die. That is why I'm happy. Thank you.
Dear friends, this was the first time I read this. It's overwhelming. And I learned that this is a journey. And I'm so thankful to have this opportunity to learn. From all of you, what true happiness is. Thank you.
Good morning, dear friends. In this moment for me, being happy is being here with all of you and trying the best that I can to keep my heart open and to accept what is in the present moment. Thank you.
Dear friends, I think that reading this training in the past often came with a feeling of guilt for me. And in light of some of the discussions we had yesterday and in watering our own seeds and other people's seeds, I'm sort of realizing that guilt isn't what creates generosity. And I think that this practice for me might in the future include watering the seeds of generosity that are already blooming in me. Thank you.
Dear friends, for me, true happiness is intimately linked to right livelihood. Being healthcare workers, I think spending our days trying to relieve the suffering of others is part of this training. And that when I relieve somebody else's suffering, I also relieve my suffering. And I need to recognize that. And I need to enjoy that and be nourished by it.
So for me, this mindfulness training is actually a koan. And the question is, how do I give of myself for my family, my patients, those around me, fully, but how do I do it sustainably? And what is that balance in each moment?
Happiness I see in this moment is the Sangha out there and over here, my Dharma sharing family. And I see my habit of trying to do everything, like filming and and so happiness is letting go and not having to do it my way.
Happiness is here and now. I have dropped my worries. Nowhere to go, nothing to do. No longer in a hurry. Happiness is here and now. I have dropped my worries. Somewhere to go, something to do. No longer in a hurry.
Now, please, may we have the Compassion family come up to do the third training.
Dear Sangha, dear Thai, my name is Veronica, and this is Diane. And we will be speaking to represent the Compassion family group who have discussed the third mindfulness training. Diane will read the training for us.
Good morning. True love. Aware of the suffering caused by sexual misconduct, I am committed to cultivating responsibility and learning ways to protect the safety and integrity of individuals, couples, families, and society. Knowing that sexual desire is not love, and that sexual activity motivated by craving always harms myself as well as others, I am determined not to engage in sexual relations without true love and a deep, long-term commitment made known to my family and friends. I will do everything in my power to protect children from sexual abuse and to prevent couples and families from being broken by sexual misconduct. Seeing that body and mind are one, I'm committed to learning appropriate ways to take care of my sexual energy and cultivating loving kindness, compassion, joy, and inclusiveness, which are the 4 basic elements of true love for my greater happiness and the greater happiness of others. Practicing true love, we know that we will continue beautifully into the future. And now Veronica is we were practicing deep listening, so she's going to explain what we heard in the group.
So we had a very rich sharing in our group of different people's experiences, understanding, and perspective on this training on true love. A number of members of our group spoke of the pain and suffering that they personally had experienced as the object of sexual misconduct or abuse of children sexually. Some people spoke about the anger that arises from seeing this kind of suffering and the difficulties of being able to try to forgive, sometimes feeling really that some acts are not forgivable, some acts of sexual abuse are really criminal behavior that needs to be treated in the criminal justice system or perhaps pursued for some kind of legal consequence against the person who has perpetrated abuse, sexual abuse, whether against children or against adults. One of the other interesting points that was made is that it's sometimes difficult to accept the gender-neutral language that is used in this training because in our society, most often sexual misconduct is committed by men. Not that women are innocent or don't have the capacity to also be abusive or mistreat others. Some of the points that were brought out also were the experience of sexual infidelity and the consequences of this, not only for the person who is unfaithful to their sexual partner, but for all of the people involved and the long-term implications of that kind of mistake. Another really wonderful thing that came up was being responsible for finding positive ways to be responsible for our own sexual energy and taking care of our own sexual needs in a way that is healthy and loving and kind towards ourselves. Another thing that was shared is how the perspective on this training really changes over our lives as we encounter different situations, being in new relationships, being in relationships that are troubled perhaps, being in long-term committed relationships where we may encounter boredom or different imbalance and disharmony in each partner's interest in sexual activity. Diane, I'd like to invite you to share other things that I may have forgotten.
For me, I was most touched by how people struggled with self-compassion and compassion towards others, especially when sexual trauma has been committed. One woman spoke very poignantly about forgiving the perpetrator of sexual abuse, the person who had committed sexual abuse towards her. And I was, myself personally, struck by the work that she had done within herself and the freedom that she spoke of that she felt once she was able to free herself from the hatred and the anger towards this person.
The other thing that one of our family members brought out about this training that is really beautiful is the part about being committed to learning appropriate ways to take care of our sexual energy, cultivating love and kindness, compassion, joy, and inclusiveness. The 4 basic elements of true love. That this is really an inspirational part of the teaching and something that can bring great joy for our whole lives.
Dear Tai, dear friends, I'd just like to remind you that when you hear the half sound, the wake-up sound of the bell, that means that you have 1 more minute to continue your sharing. So please, may we have the deep listening family come up to the front to present on the 4th training.
We're representing the deep listening group, and the baby will do all the talking. No one's a better listener. Loving speech and deep listening. Aware of the suffering caused by unmindful speech and the inability to listen to others, I am committed to cultivating loving speech and compassionate listening in order to relieve suffering and to promote reconciliation and peace in myself and among other people, ethnic and religious groups, and nations. Knowing that words can create happiness or suffering, I am committed to speaking truthfully, using words that inspire confidence, joy, and hope. When anger is manifesting in me, I am determined not to speak. I will practice mindful breathing and walking in order to recognize and to look deeply into my anger. I know that the roots of anger can be found in my wrong perceptions and lack of understanding of the suffering in myself and in the other person. I will speak and listen in a way that can help myself and the other person to transform suffering and see the way out of difficult situations. I am determined not to spread news that I do not know to be certain and not to utter words that can cause division or discord. I will practice right diligence to nourish my capacity for understanding, love, joy, and inclusiveness, and gradually transform anger, violence, and fear that lie deep in my consciousness. I would like to add that in loving speech and deep listening, I was reminded in our group that body language is a major component of communicating, and we can have perhaps a well-thought word or phrase, but poor body language, and communicate a negative message. I also want to say that I find myself there is great difficulty in being a good listener all the time. And I want to acknowledge that in my line of work, working with survivors of sexual violence, youth, adults, that I will sometimes not be an attentive listener. And in those moments, I find it very important to acknowledge that, to apologize for that, to point that out, and to move forward. For so many reasons, I think that there are moments that we're not the best listeners. As I was finishing preparing for our talk, I was not being a fantastic listener for the group that preceded us. And for that, I apologize, and I recognized that and stopped and listened, because I'm supposed to be a good listener. With that, I'm going to turn the microphone over to Julia.
Dear Thai and dear Sangha, I also wanted to let everyone know that we were speaking in our sharing today about our experiences as professionals, working with the people that we serve, and also the way we try to listen and communicate with our families, and that often we don't do the same way with both groups. So most of our sharing today about the mindfulness training is coming from our experience working. And when we shared, we didn't all have time to speak from our experience. And so this is a representation of many things that were shared, but it's not complete because of time. I just want to acknowledge that. There's a lot more that we could have said and would have liked to share. Another thing is that because of the limitation of time, most of what we spoke about was about listening. And two basic movements in listening. One is the receptive taking in of what another is sharing, and then our attempt to let the person know that they're being heard, which requires us to somehow communicate back in various ways that we are listening. So I think what we'll offer today is qualities of listening, the receptive side, and qualities of listening that show the other person that they're being heard. One of the qualities of listening that we spoke about was remembering that what a person is saying is representing their personal history or their background as they experience it. And this can be their perceptions, their life experiences, their feelings in the moment, their needs, their views, and that for us to listen well is to respect all of that in its complexity and not to criticize or judge it. Another aspect of listening well is to establish mindful and intentional presence to the other person. And we can express this by being attentive, being receptive to what another person is saying, also being receptive to their body language, their energy, and the actual content of their words. A third quality of listening we touched on was establishing a connection with the other person on the level of the heart, or in other words, being mindful of the energy that we're establishing. And for us also to take in the energy of their feelings while we try to channel compassion from ourselves to them. A fourth quality of listening deeply and mindfully is to listen for the feelings and the needs that are underlying a person's communication or thoughts, and really trying to understand where the other person is coming from and to resist the tendency to label or to prejudge them. And the fifth quality of listening is listening to the roles that people are speaking out of or their sense of self as they're telling a story, so that we can understand how they are perceiving themselves or the sense of self that they're speaking out of, when we find that that's helpful to hear them as they present themselves. So thank you for that, and I will pass the microphone back so we can hear more about how we actively communicate that we're doing these things.
Thank you. Qualities of offering feedback, effective contact, paying attention to one's body language, nonverbal communication, as we mentioned earlier, greeting others, inquiring into their state of mind, meeting them where they're at is what we call it in the emergency room, checking out, sensing what they need or want, offering feedback as a mirror, a sounding board to others, offering touch or physical contact if appropriate. I just want to throw out that asking if it's okay to hug, asking if it's okay to touch is very vital, because some people can be triggered or traumatized by that. Some people are not touchers or huggers, and our intent may be good to offer a hug, wanting to nurture or care for, but it could be causing harm. My experience directly. I like hugs, not my experience directly. Asking questions to reframe others' experience, challenging gently if needed, offering skillful words or medicine to help soothe or heal.
My dear friends, very quickly, I'd like to share that what many people don't like to see when they need someone to talk to is this. And from my experience, I love to listen with stillness, and look at them with compassion, with the eyes of a Buddha, with the ears of Thai or a Bodhisattva. And that brings true healing and true joy and peace. And I'd just like to share that. Thank you.
May we please have the mindful breath family come up to present on the 5th training.
So we are the 5th group, Mindful Breath, and we'll talk about nourishment and healing, awareness of suffering caused by mindful unconsumption. I am committed to cultivating health, both physical and mental, for myself, my family, and my society by practicing mindful eating, drinking, and consuming. I will practice looking deeply into how to consume the 4 kinds of nutriments, namely edible foods, sense impressions, volition, and consciousness. I am determined not to gamble or to use alcohol, drugs, or any other products which contain toxins, such as certain websites, electronic games, TV programs, films, magazines, books, and conversations. We'll practice coming back to the present moment to be in touch with the refreshing, healing, and nourishing elements in me, around me, not letting regrets and sorrow drag me back into the past, nor letting anxieties, fear, or craving pull me out of the present moment. I am determined not to try to cover up loneliness, anxiety, or other suffering by losing myself in consumption. I will contemplate into being and consume in a way that preserves peace, joy, and well-being in my body and consciousness, and in the collective body and consciousness of my family, my society, and the earth.
Dear Thai, dear Sangha, and friends, we're the Mindful Breath family. My name is Jessica. And as we discussed the 5th training, the 3 themes that we kept coming back to were intention, evolution, and action. And that by receiving this training, that we have the intention to follow the precepts, but that it's often an evolution in our life as how these play out, and that then helps us determine our actions from there. One theme that several of us talked about was how this training is not just about ourselves, but about how we relate to our family members and how it can be a model in relating to our family and modeling for our children. Our scribe wrote the quote, "Be the change you want to see in the world," from Gandhi. And to me, that was the most important part of this training.
Dear Sangha, my name is Amit, and just continuing on that, being the model for the family, by being mindful of what we are trying to consume, be it food, be it sense impressions, we can provide the guidance and the path to address our own. Some of us talked about it like we tend to get addicted to some of these things and we find it hard to control. So in that sense, it's a little bit of an addiction, and by being mindful of how we consume, be it food or be it alcohol or any other sense impression that we have, we can be the model, just not for ourselves. We find, at least I find for myself, that I am kinder and gentler And that, if I model that, I think that can be a great thing for the community as well. And while we practice that out here, the challenge for some of us is how do we take these precepts back to the community, especially at work, when somebody says, let's go out for a drink, and if we have said that we don't want to imbibe alcohol, one of the things that, and taking it back into a consumer society where our kids also want to watch TV, and we say for us, at least for myself, I know that watching TV is not good for me, especially the advertisements, because they drive certain desires which are unwholesome. And there were some things which we talked about. One was, if let's say you're going out for drinking, you can go out and then maybe have a drink of water or drink orange juice, and that's a way of being part of the community, but at the same time being mindful and honoring the training that we've decided to undergo. And lastly, there's a sense that when we go back from here, or if we're outside in the general society, there's this, I would say, pressure to conform to what the outside society is. If let's say a family member is watching TV, there's a pressure within me to conform and also watch it. And I know from my own, as we were talking about the intention and the evolution, and then the action would be that we can consciously choose not to indulge in the negative things which we know from our own experience have caused us harm, and be mindful in how we consume that. So that was the intention. Then if David, you'd like to.
There are a couple other things that were said. The one person shared that she had done a lot of looking and then changed her own behavior in relation to buying clothes, jewelry, and fashion-related things, and that it's not an all or nothing thing, and the point isn't that there's something wrong with wanting to, to appear in a lovely way, but that she and her partner had actually switched to buying more things at thrift shops. And part of the meaning when we say evolution is, for whatever reason, we'll have an interest and a readiness to take some action, let's say, in that dimension or in how we consume the web. And that's what we do. And there'll be some other part of the same training. Maybe we're not even seeing it or not quite ready to work with it. But there a lot of sharing on the happiness that comes from being released from, the belief that what we consume or what we're going to consume next or buy next will make us happy. And some strong, deep sharing about the suffering caused by alcohol consumption and the benefits and the restoring of relationships when that stops. I think we also said, or I suppose it should be I said, that we need to respect ourselves and respect the mindfulness trainings. So if you know that there's a particular training, you may not agree with it. You may know you're not ready for certain parts of it, like ready to make a commitment to stop drinking alcohol. It's okay to receive 4 trainings, or the ones that you most resonate with, because if you practice and commit to any of them, you move in the direction of all 5. So we touched on that in the group.
One suggestion that I'm going to take back from one of our group members, and this is in consuming media, is that he stopped listening to the radio on the way to work and started listening to tapes of Thay's teachings. And I thought that was a wonderful way to shift away from overconsumption of media.
Dear Thai, dear Sangha, it was so wonderful to hear the insights of the Fourfold Sangha. Can we give flowers for everyone's presentations? So we're very aware of the time constraint in these group activities, so please don't allow the discussion, the reflection, and the practice to end here, but continue these conversations. This is kind of a spark. It's supposed to spark a fire inside of all of us and inside the community. So you can share in your free time, reflect in your personal time, and also bring it to your Dharma discussion group as well as your Sanghas back at home. And there's also many wonderful online forums and other places that you can go to discuss these. So please continue the discussion and the reflection. I think one theme that I noticed was that these practices, these trainings are really trainings. They're not just rocks that we carry around and weigh us down, but they give us life and energy. And so I think if we keep that in mind, we can always keep them fresh. Keep in mind that they're not something solid and unchanging, but they're growing and they're moving inside of us and with us. And if you want to take the trainings, just like the last group shared, you don't have to take all 5. You can take 1, 2, 3, 4, or all 5, just as long as you feel comfortable with them. And on the sheets that many of you have, on the back of them is an application. We also have more in the back on a stool. If you don't want the sheet, you can return it to the pile that's on the stool in the back of the meditation hall. But if you do, please fill it out and then give it to your Dharma discussion group facilitator. Thank you so much for coming and participating tonight. This morning. And please keep this conversation going. I really enjoyed listening to everyone's wonderful presentations. I feel that your group really, all of the groups really offered insight and fresh outlooks on the trainings. And I look forward to the rest of the retreat with all of you. Thank you. We'll end with 3 sounds of the bell.